You can hear over that truck running. Paperwork Princess is inside. It's still a bit warm out here, and she likes her air conditioning. So I'm gonna do this over the truck running, and hope you guys can hear it well. I'm gonna try to answer several questions at once. Somebody just asked, what does a trailer like this cost? It really depends on who you buy it from and how old it is, but just to give you an idea, you buy a brand new one, they're about 85 grand, somewhere right in that range, plus FET, which is federal excise tax, and it'll run, I've been told anywhere from 8 to 12,000, so I'm not real sure on that. I'm not the accountant, but either way, it's expensive if you buy it new. So we've been buying ours, about anywhere from 1 to 2 years old. They still look like a new trailer, they still perform like a new trailer, and you'll save a lot of money. For example, I think we actually bought this particular trailer new, but the other two we have that are basically the same model. They're both 5307s. This one has a couple bells and whistles on it, the others don't, which is the tire pockets in the back. But it's the same basic trailer package, and I think we gave 60 for one and 65 for another one. And like I said, they were about 2 years old at that point. And I will say, that seems like a lot of money, but it's worth every penny of it, because you just don't have very many problems out of a late model trailer. And if you're down for a single day getting your wiring harness fixed or whatever the issue is, that's about $1,000 or better that you're losing in lost revenue, plus the cost of the repair. So, you can buy some trailers that are still in really good condition for 30 or 40,000, but the thing you've got to start watching out for when you're buying an older trailer that's 5-6 years old is, where did they come from? In other words, did they come from somewhere up in salt country where they use a lot of salt on the roads when it snows? So the thing you got to watch for, not the outside of the frame rail, but the inside of the frame rail. Down here in this area, you'll start seeing rust build up in there. If these little weep holes or drain holes start getting plugged up, they will rust from the inside, and it will rust all the way around to where it's broken off. In the bottom, a couple inches will be rusty, and the rest of that upright is in good shape. So you've got to have a patch job done. So good trailer maintenance means every now and then you got to come clean the rust out. Rust is a common thing because the inside of these are not treated and they get wet. Condensation, whatever, they get wet. So make sure your weep holes stay cleaned out. This one doesn't have one. I don't know if there's a hole in the top of the frame rail so that it drains in and then out somewhere along the bottom, or if it's just going to rust through in a few years. But the thing that you want to check for is making sure that your uprights with weep holes do stay cleaned out so they can drain properly. When you're looking for a trailer to buy, if you suspect rust, find something like, I carry this little wrench in my pocket. It's so handy. I use it to take antennas off vehicles when they're in the way. You can tap. Now this, because it's solid down here, structurally it's across this way, it's going to change the sound some compared to up in here, but that may also be full of rust or water or something sitting down in there. When the sound changes, see, we know that's not full because we just cleaned that out. But down here at the bottom though, there is a slight difference in sound where it's attached. When it gets thin, the sound will change. So if you know there's, like if you see a little bubble in the paint that you think is rust, tap around it, because that will give you an idea whether it's truly getting thin in that area or not. So look for rust. A little bit of rust here and there may not be that big a deal. I mean, if you save $20,000, $30,000 on the purchase price of the trailer, you can put a few thousand into having that trailer repaired. If there's a small rust hole through the frame, you can put a plate over that, but you can't have rust holes in the frame or you'll fail a DOT inspection. Somebody had commented earlier when I did the video about this cheesy Cottrell fastening systems, these little gadgets that zip ties work well, and they really do. In fact, when I had somebody repair this, replace that little section of wire right there, they put zip ties on up here. Zip ties are great. The problem is, as soon as this drags, but you can see that it has because you can see where this is torn up. But as soon as this drags, that's going to get cut right off, and then your wire's hanging again. And the reason I had to have this repaired is because all of these little stickies across through there came loose, and the wire fell down. And when I went across a hump in the road and this drug, the wire was hanging down and it went under the rail and got cut in two. This particular wire controls my hydraulic motor that's mounted up front, but it goes to the switch on the rear. So I can't put a zip tie here and all the way out to this hole. I don't have a drill with me to drill a hole right there. But as you can see, this area is quite polished because when I bring a larger vehicle in, the tires sit right here. And if you have a zip tie across that and those tires are constantly rubbing on that, it's just going to break that zip tie loose. So I had some tape, I stuck it on there temporarily, but I want to get some of the little grommet deals that go around the wire and you put a screw through it so I can fasten it properly back along this rail. Sorry, I can't think what they're called, but at any rate. Now, another question that I was asked is how to choose a truck. What truck would I buy? And I don't endorse any particular brand of truck. I do have a few opinions. I like a sleeper with enough room to stand up, move around, get dressed in it. That's just a personal thing for me. I happen to like Volvo. I like Mack. Some people don't. It's just like Ford and Chevy. Some people like one, but not the other. And it's really just a personal preference because you're going to find a lemon no matter what brand of vehicle you're driving. But I will give you a few pointers on what I look for. And again, this is just my opinion. In my opinion, I would stay away from any truck that has a max force engine in it, which as far as I know, International was the only ones that used it, but not positive. I went shopping one time for trucks. I looked at a row of about 15 trucks sitting at a dealer, and one of them was priced at, I want to say like $24,000, and the others were priced at $40,000. They were all the same trucks as far as I could tell. So I asked the salesman what the difference was. He said all of them but that one truck has Cummins engines in it, and that particular truck had a max force. Started and ran great right then, but a max force engine is just known to be problematic. So I would stay away from max force. Not International necessarily. International makes a good truck, but I would definitely stay away from the max force. Another engine that I would be concerned about, or at least do some very, very careful research on, is the Mercedes engine. I don't want to talk bad about an engine that I've never operated, don't have any personal experience with, but from reading on the forums, it may just be that they're not common enough that people know how to do the maintenance on them properly, and maybe it's just harder to find a mechanic that really understands them. But I've seen a lot of people complain about the Mercedes engines, and I've seen some say they're good engines once they know how to take care of them. But you can't go wrong, generally speaking, by sticking with something that's tried and true. A good old Cummins, Caterpillar, some of the Volvo, Mack engines. I've run 3 different Volvo Mack engines at this point, and the only one I had trouble with was the D16 in my big sleeper blowing a head gasket. But from what I find online, everybody knows that every engine, every manufactured thing out there has its weak link. And the weak link with the Volvo engines, the D13, the D16, is, from what I've found, head gaskets. It's not the end of the world. You put a new head gasket in it and you're back on the road. The 60 series Detroits, I've run those. Those are great engines. The thing about the real common engines is it's easier to find parts wherever you happen to be. They're not as hard to find, and they're typically not as expensive. So you got to remember, again, losing a day, 2, 3, waiting on parts, $1,000 a day on average that you're losing in gross income. So a lot of guys get really tied up on the initial purchase price of a truck, but then end up spending far more down the road because they didn't get something that was dependable. And there's no guarantee when you buy a truck that it's going to be dependable at all. It really isn't. But, okay, I want to show you something, and I've talked about this a little bit in previous videos, but whatever truck you do decide to go with brand-wise, doesn't really matter. But one thing you do need to watch for when you're going to plan on doing car hauling is you need some space between that front drive axle and the back of your sleeper. Now my truck is turned a little bit right now because of this parking hole I'm in, but you see the overhang off the front of my trailer? When it straightens up, that gets a lot closer to the cab, and of course I have that car pulled back a little ways. But you need room to run this front vehicle down in that hole between your trailer and your truck so that you get more room on that back deck. The more flexibility, the more room you have, the more money you can make. It's a bottom line. Know how to use your tools and get the right tools for the job. Learn how to maximize whatever brand or size trailer you have so that you can get the most out of it. I started off running a 3-car wedge trailer. Decided I didn't like that at all. I turned it into a 4-car wedge trailer. It made a big difference on my income. Decided I didn't like the lack of income from a trailer so small, so I moved up to a 5-6 car Kaufman trailer. Ran that one for several years. Decided I didn't like the 5.6 and I turned it into a 6.7. You can see the photos of exactly how that was done on my website, nationwideautodispatch.com. Just go to the mechanic page and look at the pictures of what we did with that trailer. It started off as a 2-axle like this one, except they're single wheels. I turned it into a 3-axle. I wasn't blowing tires all the time for being overweight anymore. The bottom deck was too short to put 3 normal size cars like that. If I put 2 in the belly, I had to have something like a Volkswagen Bug on the back. So I extended the back 2.5 feet and put flip outs on it that added another 14 inches when they were flipped out. Then I could put 3 normal size cars like that. Little things like that make a huge difference on your income. Finding cars like that, easy enough to do. Find 2 of those and a little teeny tiny one on a regular basis so you can keep your bottom deck full, not so easy, which meant a lot of times I only had 2 cars on the bottom deck, and that was money left on the table. That was an empty spot on my trailer, and I hate that. When I'm done tomorrow morning, I will have 7 units on this trailer, and I'll be grossing about $3 a mile for every mile I'm driving to deliver it. That's my goal, $3 a mile. Don't always make it. Sometimes I'm over. This month I'm averaging right at 3 or maybe just a little over. Paperwork Princess is doing a fantastic job with the dispatching, and I just spotted the strap that came off. See, this is what you got to do whenever you get out. Every time you stop your vehicle, every time you stop your truck, you need to get out and look, do a walk around. So I'll have to tighten that strap up before I take off. Anyway, so back to the truck again. 2 primary things that you have to deal with, well, 3 really. One is your 5th wheel has to be mounted all the way back where you can see that pivot point right there. That pivot point is basically the same place that the lock is inside it, and it is dead center over the back axle of this truck. Notice this. When I'm turning, look how close the corner of that mud flap is. Now, as I turn a little bit more, it's going to swing around a little bit closer. It will get down to where it is just 2 inches from that trailer. Now, whoever had the trailer before me somewhere back actually did have the mud flaps get into the nose of the trailer. It's not a big deal. Put a little dent in it. Might bend your mud flap up, but it's not the end of the world. It's not that big a deal. As long as you got your 5th wheel slid far enough back, that doesn't happen. But slid, and you have to actually remount. You either have to get a long slide 5th wheel, or you have to take all those bolts out. As you can see, it used to be mounted up here. It's now all the way back to there. And then it slid all the way to the back. So that's item number 1. Item number 2 is don't get a little short frame truck. Make sure you got several feet between your axle and the back of your sleeper, or the back of those fins, because you need room to tuck this back or front vehicle down into that hole between your truck and trailer so that you've got plenty of room up there. The third thing is how do you power your trailer? Now this one is what's called a self-contained trailer. As you can see, it has the self-contained unit sitting right there, and I've got some boxes of straps and other junk in there, but it's a good catch-all place. Anyway, and I've got a winch that I've built and mounted into this trailer, which that's a really good spot for it. It's never in the way of a vehicle, and I can operate that winch to onload and offload every single position on this trailer using D-rings and these little snatch blocks. Sometimes it'll take 2 or 3 of those to do what you want to do, and I carry extras in the truck with. So this trailer being self-contained means it's electrically operated, which is what these 2 super heavy-duty battery cables do. The black one ties to the frame right up there. The power one goes through that master shutoff switch and straight up to the batteries. Back here where I'm not picking up so much truck noise. At any rate, the other option is it's a PTO system on the truck. Basically the same thing. Instead of 2 wires, you have 2 hydraulic lines, and they plug into the front of the trailer just like that does. And you don't have the tank in there. In fact, that's the main difference between the 5307 and the 5308 is that becomes a spot for a small car instead of storage and a hydraulic tank and pumps. And of course, there's a little bit of difference with the decks in the middle of the trailer to be able to get a vehicle into that spot. But, or you can have an 8-car that is self-contained, and it will actually have a small tank mounted right across the front right there for the hydraulics, and a motor sits up on top of it. So either way, whether it's PTO driven hydraulics or it's self-contained hydraulics, you have to power that. You have to have some sort of a power source. And there are some trailers out there that have a little gas motor built on it. I wouldn't want that. You have to start that motor every time. It's gas, which means you've got to carry gas. You got to have access to gas. You got to hike across the parking lot when you go to a truck stop. Make sure your gas can's full. You've got another failure point. You know, if I wouldn't want to get a little gas-powered motor, pony motor is what they're called, to power my trailer. The advantage of that, though, is that in the event your truck totally fails, you can still offload your trailer, especially if it's a PTO truck and you've got to have another driver come get your cars. Well, depending on what kind of truck they're driving, you may not be able to get the cars off your trailer. With the pony motor, you could. That's just an advantage, though. It's not something I would specifically, I wouldn't buy a trailer for that purpose. Electric trailer, though, if you have a set of heavy-duty jumper cables, you can still get the cars off, even if your batteries are totally dead on the truck. You just hook the jumper cables up to another truck parked next to it, and if you get those heavy jumper cables like I carry, it may run a little slower, but it'll still do the job. So aside from those 3 factors on a truck, and those are not anything to do with the brand, it's just things that you have to look for or add to whatever truck you do decide to get, there's really not anything else I can think of that's a necessary requirement for a truck, other than, for me, I don't like those little bitty tiny sleepers like that. I live out here on the road. I'm out here for 6 weeks at a time, sometimes more than that, and I like to be comfortable. This thing has a refrigerator big enough to put a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread in, and that is about it. And I like to eat healthy when I can, so I like to have a refrigerator where I can cook, a full-size refrigerator. So the 780, Volvo 780 is a fantastic truck. I've been in one of those before. Lots of room, comfortable. You can really live in that truck comfortably. Of course, I am spoiled. I do miss my big sleeper and may get it back soon now. Can't think of anything else specific about the truck, so if you have any questions, drop some comments in the videos. Really do enjoy interacting with people. Like getting your comments and your questions. The Trail makes a great trailer. I like it. I'm not knocking any other brand, but I do like the Cottrell. I really do. Anyway, y'all keep the greasy side down and keep between the lines.